All right, I got the you want me to go ahead and start?
And now go ahead. Yeah, we're live.
All right, we are live. Hopefully the mics are working. If not, let us know in the comments and we will try and fix it on the fly. We're starting on two channels, obviously Skull Zone over here on YouTube. And what's the name of the channel, Todd, over here for your the other page?
Unfiltered Sports Network.
Unfiltered Sports Network. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and subscribe to both channels. And yeah, on my channel I do a lot of Madden and some Minnesota Vikings rants, and then over here on the other channel we'll do all out sports. So if you're a sports fanatic, go ahead and subscribe to both. But yeah, my name is Carlos. A lot of people know me for as Skull Zone. And Todd, they know you from Branding True Crimes, Halos in the Infield, and James, you're also part of Halos in the Infield and the chair with James Gonzalez over
Um,
here.
And
yeah,
Go
man,
ahead.
Coast to Coast Entertainment.
co-
Pretty much it.
he said Coast to Coast Network right there. You can check them
Coast
out.
to Coast Network as well. So we're gonna dive right into the recaps of the wild card round. Cleveland versus the Houston Texans. I was the lone wolf that picked the Houston Texans in this matchup. And Cleveland, basically, in my eyes, I'll get to you guys in just a second. I'm gonna keep it brief so that way I'm not hogging up the mic. Um, well, the reason I went with Houston and I felt pretty strong about this one is because I just figured that Joe Flacco's fire was eventually going to get put out, and boy, did it get put out. I think he had like two pick sixes in this game. And man, that thing just came. There's basically like a car that got put together with some Play-Doh and some Elmer's glue. And man, when it came down to shine, like it could not have come at a worse time. Joe Flacco completely crumbled under the lights. And another reason why I went with Houston, this is the last reason why I'm spit out. The last reason I spit out is because if you go back to the Thursday night football game against the Jets. Joe Flacco, if you go back to the first quarter, Joe Flacco was looking horrible in the beginning of that game. Like he looked like it was the defense that carried the momentum. And once the defense really put the clamps down on the New York Jets in that game, Joe Flacco started getting comfortable, and then that's when he started playing better and better and better. So he's the type of quarterback kind of like you gotta wind him up like an old school car, like a Flintstone car or something like that, and then he gets it going. But yeah, he could not. He didn't look like a franchise style quarterback, and that's the reason why he was on the sidelines for basically the whole entire year up until the last like 2 months.
Yeah, I'll say about this game. I picked Cleveland, and I want to ask you guys afterwards. After James gives his take, was it a success to you for the Cleveland Browns as a season? Because I think it was. I think with all that the coaching staff had to deal with the many injuries at running back, quarterbacks going in and out, Watson again, that whole thing, Flacco reviving. I mean, his numbers on the outside, if he doesn't throw those two picks, 34, 46, 307, but he was sacked four times critically. They couldn't score, turnover on downs a couple times. But they weren't able to do their bread and butter, which is the run with Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford. And the fact that they were one dimensional played right into Houston's hands. CJ Stroud, we've been doubting this guy all year, but he has been coming through. He went efficient, 16 for 21, 274, three touchdowns, not sacked. Singletary gave him balance in the running game with 66 yards. So, after that pick six that put him down 17, that was it, man. It was a wrap. They were able to pin their ears back, and Houston got him. So I just didn't think they were going to blow him out like this. But all in all, in my take with this game, I still think the season, in my opinion, is a success with everything that Cleveland went through. And watch out, Baltimore. Houston's coming.
Yeah. Let me mention Cleveland. So yeah, I felt like it was a definite success coming into the season. You just figured, okay, they're going to ride with Watson. The defense can only carry them so much. They have just a lot of players that maybe not mix well with the team. But Amari Cooper had some games to remember. But yeah, the injuries are a big deal. I think they had four different quarterbacks start a game. So, with all that and then the defense, it was definitely a success because I think they were slated to be in last place, maybe right there with the Steelers. Um, so with all those injuries, I thought it was a success. But with the game though, with Joe Flacco, you just figured he had a day coming where he was going to throw a couple of picks. But remember, he played Houston very well last time. But I think the Houston defense did a great job of realizing what they did wrong against him in the regular season. They righted that wrong. They covered better. But some of those throws are pretty bad, though. I mean, that looked like the old Flacco after he got paid with Baltimore. That was the only problem with it. But man, credit to C.J. Stroud. First, playoff game for him as a rookie, of course. He wasn't shy. 3 touchdowns, 274 yards, really good. 16 for 21. Singletary ran for a touchdown, but Nico Collins was really clutch. Brevin Jordan was really good as well. Man, um, I'm kind of happy for Houston, but I was happy for the season Cleveland did have. I know their Stefanski is going to be considered in the uh, Coach of the Year award. So yeah, I think it was a success despite all the injuries. And it was just really, really uh, fortunate. I think the way they were able to manage the season. When you think about also they lost Nick Chubb in that Monday night game,
Correct.
the gruesome injury, that awful to see. But man, when they had Ford running, when they had the other running back here running as well, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he kind of had a resurgence of a year, and then they lost another running back as well. So it definitely was a success, but it can only go so far.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Oh yeah, man. I couldn't agree anymore, man. Kareem Hunt. Going back to what you said, James or Todd, one of you said that Kareem Hunt couldn't. I think Kareem Hunt got 2 touchdowns against the Texans, but bro, it wasn't enough. Houston was just I don't want CJ Stroud. Man, every time I watch that dude CJ Stroud throw the ball, bro, I'm just like, man, that dude's got a beautiful release, man. Like he's got one of the best passes. Like he's one of the best quarterbacks I've seen in a long time, bro. Like I love the way that ball just like the way it comes out, the projection and all that, the high arch in it, man. It's a really, really nice the mechanics that he has is really, really good. But I got a couple people right here in my chat, or one person asking where I'm at. I don't know if I'm not showing up on the camera, but hopefully you can hear me. And that's all I got on that game. The Houston Texans took care of business, and they took the wheels out of off of Joe Flacco's mobile, and they left them in the handicap zone.
They sure did.
So let's move on to Miami versus Kansas City, a game that I thought Miami could take care of business because Kansas City was looking down in the dumps, and to me, it was for me honestly, I still feel pretty good on why I picked the Miami Dolphins. Um, they're a team that can only beat bad teams, and Kansas City was struggling going into the playoffs, and for Patrick Mahomes to have a 10, 11, 12 win season and that be a down year, that says a lot about the capabilities that they have over there in Kansas City. And yeah, man, they took care of business. Tyreek Hill finally went back into Kansas City. Granted, it was like negative 40 degrees, but you still got to take care of business. And the Kansas City Chiefs, even though it was cold, Rasheed Rice stepped up. Isaiah Pacheco played like he always do. Basically, the weather was a non-factor for Kansas City. You could tell the difference between the two cities. It affected Humpty Hump over there, the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. And yeah, man, I mean, a hot city going into a cold city is not a good blend. And yeah, Kansas City just took care of business. I picked Miami. You 2-1 with Kansas City.
Yeah, this was a tough one because I wanted to give, you know, I wanted to pick the Miami Dolphins, but Miami, they faded down the stretch. And I wanted to bring up a stat. I looked this up before the show. The Miami Dolphins, including this year, have a record since 2010 in the month of December of 27 or 28 and 34. 6 games under 500. They went 1-3 this year. They went 0-4 last year. They've only had 2 seasons in those 13 or 3 seasons in those 13 years with a winning record. there's something to Miami having to play games in cold weather cities. And this was as cold as it got. They couldn't. A lot of people were like, "Well, how come they didn't reschedule this game like they did the Pittsburgh game?" Well, the blizzard blew through Buffalo, but it was going to be even colder if they would have waited another day or two in Kansas City. So they had to play the game in those conditions. And the last thing I'll say about this game is Miami, despite them losing this game 26-7, the game wasn't over till the fourth quarter. They were still within 2 scores. The defense held the Chiefs. The Chiefs did not look impressive, and they were only down 19-7. A score real quick and defensive stand, and all of a sudden you got a game. The problem is Miami couldn't move the ball, and Tua looked overwhelmed, and he wasn't as accurate, and Mahomes made the plays, and the Chiefs get the win.
I was looking at that game. You just knew Miami didn't have a chance, honestly. Um, I was so, I was wondering about how the offense would go in Tyreek Hill and all that, but really the one receiver that stood out was Rashid Rice, that rookie.
Mm-hmm.
130 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. Pacheco also got a touchdown. Mahomes didn't have to do so much. I think the defense really got in there and stopped Tua, 1 touchdown and 1 pick for him. But really, no one else did anything for Miami. I know Tyreek Hill had a touchdown. You'd figure that. But like I think me and Todd were talking earlier before the show, where it's like, hey man, they were so banged up, especially on defense. Only Ramsey and Wilkins were left from their star-studded defense. When you think about it, Van Ginkel got hurt, and someone else, Xavier Howard, was hurt most of the year as well. But Van Ginkel just got hurt in that Week 18 game. So they were coming in losing 5 or 6 defensive stars that they had. That could have made a difference. And also, I was telling Todd, I said, hey, if they went the route the Bills went, where they won their division, they wouldn't have to go on the road. If they had a home game, at least in the wild card, they wouldn't have gone through this. But it was just all these things hitting, December hitting, which is always their bad month. And it just hurt Miami in that way. For Kansas City now, they get the win. They look a little better. They go on the road for the first time ever in the Mahomes era in the playoffs. So that's going to be interesting to see. But credit Miami for just hanging on. But yeah, injuries just destroyed them. And I don't want to put too much blame on Tua. I know everybody's railing him because they're saying, oh, well, this was his first playoff game. And then he can't beat, over 500 teams at all. With a real healthy team, maybe next year we'll get to see that. But it just wasn't in the cards for Miami, and especially the weather. And I also think why they didn't postpone that game was because of that time slot, because it was the fact it was on Peacock. They had to see how many viewers they would get, how much attention they would get all over the country, being, a playoff game on an app. So they had to play it on that app or in that time slot, it felt like.
Yeah, yeah. I think following up on that, James, I think what the NFL is trying to do is because they got contracts with like Peacock and Hulu and all that, mainly Peacock right now. That's it. They're partnered with NBC, and their NBC's just trying to get money hungry at this point. I'm with the majority of everybody. I don't really like how they're starting to charge people to like make people get accounts with all these different apps and all that. If anything, that's gonna ruin the sport, man. It's gonna be like, why am I gonna pay money for something that used to be free? This is getting to a point where now they're just getting super money hungry, especially with the Vegas deals and all that.
Agreed.
Um, let's see. Moving on to Pittsburgh. One thing before we move on, James, back to what you said about Tua Tagovailoa. Man, like I kind of disagree with you on that one, man. But I'm like on the fence about it still, kind of. Tua Tagovailoa threw that crucial interception at the end of the game versus the Buffalo Bills, man. Like he threw it into that's the only thing that I could think of, like when you said that. But I'm gonna cut him some slack because like you said, wait until everybody's healthy, and they had a division lead for most of the year. But yeah, man, like if he doesn't get the job done next year, then it's gonna say a lot, man. Like we're gonna look back at his career career as a Dolphin, and that one's gonna stick out a lot because they had the division on wrap right there. I think they were even leading against the Buffalo Bills in that game for a little bit. But let's move on to the AFC East division winning Buffalo Bills, who hosted the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this game, I was kind of into it, and I was hoping that Pittsburgh would win because of what Buffalo did with the weather and all that. Call me old school all you want. I don't know. I just feel like you win home field advantage, and you damn it, you should honor it. You shouldn't reschedule it because if it was a West Coast team or Miami coming into Buffalo with the snow and all that with 3, 4, 5 feet of snow, Miami wouldn't stand a chance, and Buffalo would have blown them out. But it felt like a blowout against Pittsburgh. And yeah, man, Buffalo took care of business. James Cook is looking like his older brother, Dalvin Cook, back in his prime days in Minnesota. And yeah, man, I'm not really liking the Buffalo Bills too much because of what they did. They actually helped out Pittsburgh a little bit, and I thought Pittsburgh had a chance of winning this game when they kept it close. They got it within a touchdown, and I was like, "Ooh, Pittsburgh could possibly upset the Buffalo Bills." And I was pulling for Pittsburgh because of that weather move, but it didn't happen, man. But we all picked the Buffalo Bills in this game. Sean McDermott is putting a team together, and damn it, man, I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler. I think Buffalo might represent the AFC.
I had to agree with you because, oftentimes the media and other people get caught up in winning, especially now that we only have one first round bye. It's like the best of the AFC and the best of the NFC. They're kind of crowned early. And it's not how you start a season, it's how you finish. And Buffalo was written off at 6-6. Lo and behold, they win 6 straight. They win the division. They get into the postseason. And granted, this game, like you said, it was in difficult conditions. Both teams, you can't say, are favored because both play in this kind of cold weather. They're both seasoned teams. I believe, though, and I'm just going to make this point because the Bills did hang on to win this game, and they did do some things impressive, and then they didn't. But what I will say, I don't know, maybe you guys can answer, what's more frustrating to you? Which fan base is more frustrated today? The Pittsburgh Steelers or the New York Jets, knowing that if they had gotten any kind of quarterback play, despite the Aaron Rodgers thing, what happened in New York, with their defense playing good, then you got Pittsburgh without Kenny Pickett not playing to his capabilities. Then you get the injury. You have to deal with a trash quarterback from the Bears. What's his name? Turbitsky. And then you have now you're depending on Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph with a few more throws, the Steelers possibly take that one. It's got to give you a frustration knowing that despite all the injuries, you're right there in a wild card game where you possibly could have upset a division winner. I think you have to give it to the Steelers as far my vote for most frustrated because they played their ass off and they got nothing to be ashamed of. And if Tomlin gets himself a quarterback, watch out in Pittsburgh.
I feel like with the Jets though, they have such a playoff drought. Right, so they're just wishing for like anything to go their way, and for their quarterback to get hurt. Five plays in the regular season, that just feels deflating. Plus, you feel like okay, they have a defense, they have players around Rodgers that can finally get them into the postseason. So that kind of derailed them in a bit. But with Pittsburgh, I think. It almost feels like an Angel situation with me and Todd because if you're a true fan, and I have so many different Steeler fans takes or whatever, your name Tree, and then the other Yinzers out there in Pittsburgh and all over the country. Mm-hmm. You're either satisfied with being 10-7, mediocre, losing in the wild card round like you did, or you're wanting more. And I just can't help to, compare that to what the Angel fans are going through in baseball. And then you're just trash after a while. With the Steelers, it just feels like, hey, they're just, they're content with just being, over 500 barely and losing out. The Jets wish they could be that. So it feels like the Jet fans have more. Would you say more of a their fan base is more depleted or
Frustrating.
frustrated? Yeah, I think Jet fans are most frustrated, more frustrated because they just want a glimpse of the playoffs, and they haven't had that since what 2011.
Correct.
So,
But fumble.
um, yeah, the year after on Thanksgiving, I think. Um, so yeah, I think the Jet fans are more frustrated because Steeler fans they've had excellence before most recently, but they also feel like with Tomlin they're in good hands. With Jets, they keep changing coaches. So despite that, this game I kind of knew Steelers had no chance, but they had some glimpses going their way.
Yeah, yeah.
They had some things go their way, but the running game they didn't get really to it. They passed more than they ran. Warren and Najee Harris. I know Harris was banged up, so that was unfortunate. But he was out there running barely. But Mason Rudolph 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. That was really good. But everybody else kind of laid it on the line. The receivers in that cold weather. I mean, you weren't going to do much. Um, as I mentioned, it felt like the Steelers were in better hands, not starting Trubisky, but Mason Rudolph, because I think he's been there longer, of course. Um, Man, with the Bills, they couldn't do as much, but uh, they got some timely touchdowns and turnovers. Josh Allen had 3 touchdowns, so it felt like they were just going to do what they were going to do. It was going to be limited though because of the weather. Like Scholes said, they're coming in. I feel like the hottest, and if they play Baltimore, I think you truly have. I hate discounting the cheat. Well, I don't, but I would hate to get rid of championship pedigree that Kansas City has. But it would feel like Buffalo, Baltimore would be the two standards, the two best left in the AFC if we get to that. Because Buffalo, despite their injuries, and they just had another defensive player get hurt, by the way, too. Um, and Terry, he's carted off, so he's done for the year. I think it was a safety that got cut under, but they've also went through what Miami went through, but also defense. So uh, it was a miracle they got back. That they had a winning streak. This isn't acceptable. Remember when they were out of the playoff race? They were out of the playoffs at least. They're on a run right now, and to be hosting Kansas City, that's really something.
Yeah, more disappointing. I'm gonna go 100% with what James said, but everything that you said, man, fits to a T. You haven't even sniffed the playoffs since you said 2011. I'll tell you, I believe that too. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, you put all your chips on the table. It looked like the Jets were gonna have quote unquote, I guess, Super Bowl type of year, but and they had the roster. They even signed Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook isn't even with the group anymore. He's over here in Baltimore now. We'll see how that works out. And then the Steelers, I mean, hey man, they've been kind of spoiled, so there should be no frustrations. They've got plenty of Super Bowls in this post new millennium. They've only had like 4 or 5 coaches in there since their existence, so they should not be frustrated at all. I mean, they got to be understanding. They even got some top-notch quality players like Mika Fitzpatrick. They're only missing a quarterback. They got wide receivers for days, even their tight end. I still don't know how to pronounce his name, Freermuth or whatever his name is. But they've got a hell of a team over there, and they still made the playoffs. Jets didn't make the playoffs. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the New York Jets being the more frustrated fan base.
Okay, sounds good to me right there. It's because I mean you can't really argue that. I was just throwing it out there because the Steelers just a tweak here, a tweak there on offense, and they could possibly steal that game.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So let's move on to the next game. Let's get right to it's right in the middle of the cards, man. Green Bay goes into Dallas and smashes on the Dallas Cowboys. And towards the end, it looked like Dallas still could have made it. They kind of made a game out of it a little bit, but it was a little too late. A little like they came back a little too late when they were all out of time. I think Dallas, the problem with Dallas was that they slept on the Green Bay Packers because they were like, oh, we're the better team from top to bottom. They slept on them. Honestly, that's the only thing that I could think of logically. And Mike McCarthy can't keep this team focused or anything like that. How many points did they give up? Like 48 points or something like that? It felt like they gave up 50.
48.
Aaron Jones had 3 touchdowns. And you know what? Last week when we were making our picks, that's the one reason why I wanted to pick Green Bay because I was like, man, Dallas. Because if you remember a few weeks ago, they made changes from linebackers to that were too small or whatever because they could not stop the run. They couldn't stop the run, so they went to bigger linebackers. They even released the linebacker within the last month or so. And man, I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, man, if Green Bay could get that run game going, then they could beat the Dallas Cowboys because they were the Cowboys. One thing about them is they rely on pressure. They rely on sacks and interceptions. Sacks to create the interceptions. And Green Bay took care of business, bro. That dude, I hate saying it, man, but it's so sad to see that what Green Bay does with their quarterbacks versus my Minnesota Vikings. Man, we're over here sitting here going back and forth thinking about we're gonna resign Kirk Cousins at 36 years old, and meanwhile Green Bay all they have to do is wait every 15 years, and then they draft a quarterback, and he looks like the real deal. Some of these passes that this dude Jordan Love was making was phenomenal. That looks just like Aaron Rodgers. I was like, I can't believe it, but we're witnessing another Hall of Fame style quarterback, bro. I just can't believe it. Another 15 years of the green and gold, man. I just can't believe it.
Look, to me, it's too early to tell if he is the anointed one again for Green Bay. All I'm going to say is he started out real slow. They tried to mold him as Aaron Rodgers, and it wasn't working. But all of a sudden, the last few weeks in particular, he's found his stride. And yeah, he looks like Aaron Rodgers. And in this game, let me just read off some stats real quick. The Green Bay receiving, okay? Jordan Love, first off, quarterback, 16 to 21, 272, 3 touchdowns, no picks. You look at these targets. Bo Melton, which is a receiver, and Jaden Reed were targeted. He was targeted twice. He got 1 reception for 7 yards. Jaden Reed was targeted 3 times, no receptions. The reason why I bring those guys up is because everyone else that he targeted, they made the catch, meaning that secondary was Swiss cheese. Like Christian Watson, 1 for 1. Aaron Jones, 1 for 1. Tucker Kraft, 2 for 2. Devon Wicks, 2 for 2. Luke Musgrave, 3 for 3. Romeo Dobbs, 6 for 151 and 6 targets. So every time they were targeted, he's nailing them. And like you said, Aaron Jones, 21 carries, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott could put up gaudy numbers. 41 of 60 for 403, 3 touchdowns.
Damn.
3 touchdowns, but 2 critical interceptions, including the one that Dallas was driving, trying to cut it to within 2 scores, and it was run back. The last thing I'm going to say on this one is the NFL is such a special game. It's one and done. If you don't show up, you're effed. And that whole let's brag about 16 wins in a row at home and you know, nobody can beat us. We're looking ahead to San Francisco. You're absolutely right, Carlos. They looked ahead. Did not even give the Packers a chance or feel that they were in their league. And look what happened. They got punched in the face and 14-0 at Dallas with the media breathing down their neck, the owner, and all the pressure. That must have felt like 40-0 right there.
I'm just absolutely stunned. I think first I'll mention the Packers. Just the way that they came right away offensively. You know, Jordan Love was outstanding, and he's been like that. Excuse me, the last 5 or 6 games of the season. Aaron Jones, you know, he's banged up all year long, and then he definitely saved his best for the playoffs. Aaron Jones was awesome, 3 touchdowns. Romeo Dobbs, I mean, all year long they've been wanting him to break out, and he found the right game to do that. Like Todd mentioned, all the stats and everything, and love to spread the ball around. Love, you know, that was really good by him. But excuse my language, what the fuck was Dallas doing? Like the defense was getting beat, the offense was awful. They picked the wrong time for CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to be, you know, beefing in the huddle or whatever. That was awful. You picked the worst time, and they were saying, "Oh, CeeDee Lamb isn't a diva or whatever." He was acting like it in that game. I mean, right away the cameras were focused on Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and Dak was basically trying to say, "Hey, I'll get you the ball," and Lamb was just sitting there or quiet or whatever. Then they would talk to each other. I mean, what is it with cowboy receivers that are divas, and at the worst time too in the playoff game? I mean, the running game didn't go well. I don't think Pollard did much. I was just, yeah, he didn't do much. He did score a touchdown. But Prescott on his 2 interceptions, they were just awful. Especially that one that Darnell Savage took back. He read that so well, did Savage, and he took that all the way back. That was awesome to see. Prescott, he did get his numbers, but later on. I'm not saying it's time for Dak to be gone, but it will be that time eventually. I think he has one more season left, and then he's a free agent. And the Cowboys really have to look at that and say, can we get a better performer when the real lights are on? I don't know. I don't know if there's someone out there. I mean, we had no problem with Dak in the regular season. I mean, him and Lamb were connecting so good. But what is it about playoffs and the Cowboys that just don't go together? Like I was mentioning with Todd earlier before the show, I was like, man, a tradition like no other, the Cowboys losing in the playoffs. It's amazing what this team can do and then don't, just doesn't do when the playoffs come. Jerry Jones, I felt like he should have fired McCarthy last season after that wonderful that they drew up against the Niners at the end. I feel like, yeah, he should have been fired last year. I don't know if he rallies the team enough. Maybe they need a new voice. But Jones, he didn't really get rid of coaches unless they've been there a long time. With Jason Garrett, they kept him too long. And then, before that, there was others that just went out on their own. But, man, it feels like they need a new coach. And they need someone that will – I mean, Jimmy Johnson on that Fox halftime show gave him probably a better halftime speech that they didn't hear, of course. A better speech than McCarthy did probably in that locker room. It did get dicey at the end, like Todd mentioned, but, man, they scored too much, the Packers. I mean, it was so easy right away. That was just weird to see Dallas, who's been that juggernaut in the East for all season long, and then they're just gone. Poof, disappear. It's amazing to see. That's more in Dallas, like Skull was saying, where they just overlooked their opponent. They were aiming at San Francisco, basically, but forgot, hey, this Packer team's coming in, if all their, cycles are working, offensively, defensively, they're going to be great. The only thing that bothers me about Green Bay is their special teams. Daniel Carlson, I'm not Daniel, but the other Carlson, he missed an extra point. Anders Carlson, yeah. Well, probably next year we won't see him in Green Bay if he keeps missing, field goals and extra points. He definitely isn't like his brother, that's for sure. That's the only thing I'd be worried about if I was a Packer fan going forward. It was like, man, they need better punting and need their field goal kicking. But if you score 48 points, which they won't do next week, I guarantee, you should be able to win. But this is more on Dallas just being stupid like they always are at the worst time.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. Look, man, I don't think Jerry Jones should fire. I mean, yeah, he should fire Mike McCarthy, but Jerry Jones, he's like Al Davis. I don't know if you want to agree with that one, James, but he's in his own way.
Yeah.
He's holding the Cowboys back. Everybody knows that Jerry Jones is holding the Cowboys back the same way that Al Davis was holding the Raiders back. And it took a while for the Raiders to get back to somewhat relevancy. They just got to get that coach right. They can't let Antonio Pierce go. But I say that because I think Jerry Jones, man, he's getting up there in age, and I hate saying it, man, but the baton's gonna get passed down to his son, Steven Jones.
Steven Jones.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same old, I think, because he's gonna be just like his dad. Hopefully he's not, but for our sake, hopefully he is, But yeah, Jerry Jones just needs to get out of the way and just be a fan, because that's what he is. He's a big time fan of the Cowboys, and yeah, man, other than that, I mean, they've got talent, but all of us agree they slept on the Green Bay Packers. They were overlooking them, and before you know it, they're looking up at the scoreboard and they're like, "Damn, we're really losing like this at home to the Green Bay Packers, the number 7 seed." And that was the only road team that won an entire wild card round. That's crazy right there. That's crazy. Yeah, you can look at that in any way, bro. 15 or 16 straight home wins, and then they get blown out at home. Rest in peace to the Dallas Cowboys in the 2023 season. Let's move on to a game that was probably the best game of the entire weekend. The Motor City Kitties finally did it, man. After about like what 3+ decades of suffering, they finally win their division and they get their home playoff win. That crowd was rocking, but for a while there was a couple of drives where the LA Rams went in there and they were charging. They were sitting there and they had that Ford Field on hush for a little bit. I was like, damn, this is really really quiet. And once it got to that point, the Rams, I feel like the Rams should have won that game, but the Detroit Lions made plays when they had to. And one thing about the Detroit Lions that it took me a while to figure out how are they giving up all these yards and they keep coming away with all these wins. It clicked. They have a bend but don't break style of defense, and they make plays when they absolutely have to, like at the most crucial moment. So you can light them up for 500 to 600, 700 yards if you have to, but when it comes down to it, and they need to make a stop and hold you down to 3 or turn the ball over, they're gonna get the job done. So I would be worried about the Detroit Lions because I think they get you comfortable, so that way you can take those deep shots, and then in crucial moments they'll see where you're getting comfortable and those deep throws where you're gonna throw the ball, and then they're gonna pick you off. I seen it against the Vikings with my Vikings firsthand. And yeah, Detroit. I mean, they won. They had celebrities in town in the building. Crowd was going nuts. And Jared Goff, or not Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford with that concussion. I think he suffered a concussion. I know you guys saw that hit that he took. His eyes rolled all the way back, and his face was just like emotionless, like he didn't have no emotion. And he got stepped on too. He didn't react to when the player stepped on his chest, so he didn't have no reactions or nothing. He had a concussion, bro. I think he did. And yeah, man, I think it was the best game, obviously, and yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, this game had a ton of storylines. It had the whole Stafford Goff trade. The Lions, I think they did a really good job showing what the Lions got in that trade, how they built up, and then Stafford getting the bubble championship, which I still don't recognize as a Super Bowl because I have my thoughts on that one with the Bengals getting screwed. But either way, he's a Super Bowl champ. And Stafford, look, I didn't give the guy credit. I didn't give McVay credit. I didn't give the Rams credit. I thought they were going to be a fourth place, best third place finish in that division. I was wrong. And, McVay, as much as I hate calling him a genius, he's a genius. He got that team the most out of a young, scrappy team with Aaron Donald and Stafford. I mean, Puka Nacua came out of nowhere, had 9 catches, 181. He's been solid since day one. Stafford played good enough to win this game, but you had you as a fan, like if I didn't have any bias and I didn't care about the Rams losing, which I liked and loved them losing, but if I didn't have any bias, I would have took the sentimental pick with the Lions because, the Eminem thing when he talked in the beginning, the Barry Sanders, you saw Calvin Johnson, you saw season ticket holder who had been there since the 60s, never seen, any real home playoff wins and stuff like that. You felt for the fan base. And I didn't think, Jared Goff is a true Detroit Lion. He was crying. So was the other fans. I thought it was, like Carlos said, the best game of the week, very close. It looked like it was going to be a shootout in the first half, and then when they come back from halftime, all of a sudden both defenses tighten up, and it goes down to the wire. So great game by Goff and the Lions. And one thing I'll say about the Lions and why they're so dangerous, Carlos and James, is because they make you understand that just because it's 3rd and long or 4th down, they're not going to punt. They're just not going to punt. They push the envelope all the time, and they make you realize, okay, we got to play these guys 4 downs. Not, hey, let's get them to 3rd down and then get a 4th down and they can punt. It's not a given that they're going to punt. So they're constantly putting pressure on the defense, and I think that's working for the Lions.
Man, everything Todd said was right. What I noticed about the game, both defenses locked in the second half. You definitely saw that. The running back Kyron Williams didn't get as much for LA, and they were just stifled in the second half. That's what destroyed the Rams. Why they couldn't come back was they couldn't get a field goal range because of the Lions' defense. So that really hurt them. And to only lose by a point hurts, of course. Um, Puka Nacua was awesome though. He had so many clutch catches on third down. Stafford did enough, but he was definitely also getting banged up. Just to throw for two touchdowns was really good against that defense. You could tell though, the secondary needs help in Detroit, but up front they're stacked along with their linebackers. They're really good, but the secondary allowed those two long touchdowns. That was really bad by them. But Detroit's offense all year long, they've been just steady. They've been enough. They ran, you know, okay. I mean, the thing that really hurt LA too was those third down conversions by Detroit. I mean, that really killed them, especially in the fourth quarter. Gibbs got his, Montgomery got his. It just seemed like that really hurt him. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Also, really good. It's not by him. He was with Goff in Los Angeles, and he also showed up really well. Laporta also touchdown. As old as he was, we didn't know if he was going to play or not until I think the rest of the game. And it's kind of a miracle that he played. It's good though that they don't have to go anywhere for the next game for Laporta. That's really good that they don't have to travel for him. So looking at the Rams this year, they got 10 wins. They were not supposed to get that much. It was supposed to be like what, 5 or 6, but they were able to get a win against Seattle. That was really unfortunate. Seattle kicker missing. But they got a spark from Nakua. If he's not there and does what he does, the Rams don't have these wins. Stafford had a fountain of youth there. I didn't know what he was going to be because remember he had the spinal injuries, the shoulder surgery before training camp, I believe, as well. So we didn't know what we were going to see out of Stafford, and then Cup came in, hurt. Didn't know what the running back situation was going to be, but it felt like they all profited off of, the head coach there, Sean McVay. But credit to the Lions, though, for getting their first playoff win in a while since 1992. They're rejuvenated back in Detroit, and they get to show America again next week how they feel. So that's going to be really awesome to see. Credit to the Lions for hanging in there and just winning. And it feels good if you're a Lion fan, and that has been said for a while.
Definitely feels good, but I think it was a little over dramatic, bro. Like I was kind of laughing when I seen those fans crying that they I don't know, it's just the sense of humor that I got. They were sitting there crying because they finally got a playoff win. I was like, wow, dude, like act like you've been there before. But they haven't. It's just like one of those like, dude, like at this rate, they're gonna have 3 playoff wins in 100 years because every 30 years they're gonna get a playoff win. I'm sorry, I gotta stop. But congratulations to the Detroit Lions. And that moves us on to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know, like what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I know what happened, but it's still the biggest mystery how it happened. We couldn't figure out how they were winning all these games, but they were doing it, and I couldn't fit. And then I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't know how they ended up only winning that one game against the Giants in the last of what 6-7 games. And Tampa Bay, they were begging the Eagles to come back and take the lead and win that game, but the Eagles were like, nah, outside of Devontae Smith, nobody else showed up for that Philadelphia Eagles offense. Jalen Hurts just does not look like he cares at all. I mean, the Eagles made plays on defense here and there like they're supposed to because they're a playoff team. But, man, this thing is just done for. They are done in Philadelphia. I think Nick Sirianni has to go to save his image because right now his resume looks pretty good. If he comes back for another year, he's going to end up with a losing record, and that's going to do damage to his resume. I think he needs to just take a day, not a day, but a year off of coaching, and then like 1 or 2 years down the road, come back and seeing what's up in the air for him. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, look, man, this it was just their time to win a playoff game. It could not come at a better cost than the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were just down in the dumps. The Buccaneers knew it, and the Eagles just could not tackle on defense. Could not tackle on defense, and if it wasn't for Devontae Smith, this game would have been a lot worse. Baker Mayfield definitely earned a contract, and we're gonna see what they do when they head up to the Motor City, man. Tampa Bay is looking pretty legit, man. We're about to get to predictions pretty soon, and I can't wait to see who you guys pick between the Bucks and the Lions. But I'm gonna hand this one off to Tyler or James. I don't know.
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay, well, this game, we talked about this, Carlos, all year in our picks. The Eagles 10-1. Me and you not convinced that they're that good. The Kansas City Chiefs, winning the Super Bowl, they had a slump this year, right? Most losses for Mahomes. The Eagles, we kept waiting for that Super Bowl hangover to kick in, and I think the Niners did it to them. They gave every other team the blueprint on how to beat him. Keep him in the pocket or roll him out against his throwing. Roll him to the left, and he's not good throwing Jalen Hurts on the run. And he needs that space up the middle to see over the line, and also to run up the middle. That's where he frustrated defenses. And when you go from dominating a team week in and week out, your opponent, with time of possession, to all of a sudden you're losing time of possession to the Cardinals, to the Giants, to the Seahawks, to the Cowboys. You're getting punched in the face. You're leaving a defense that got away with a lot because they're not that talented. They're either too young in certain spots, or they're too old in others. They still got Fletcher Cox, for God's sake. And in this game, the Bucs just kept disguising blitzes, then blitzing randomly, and it was frustrating. Hurts was not taking shots down the field with one. He didn't realize the matchups he had. I think that was the whole issue with the Eagles, and they never adjusted once the Niners and Cowboys and Seahawks and Cardinals and Giants all changed.
Everybody under the sun.
Yeah, basically everyone went with the same formation of defense, and the Eagles kept throwing the same offense out there and wondering why it didn't work. And last thing I'll say on this game is, this game should have been a blowout in the first half, but you had 6 critical drops that could have led to touchdowns or extended drives, and the Bucs could have put it away early. They started to hold on to the ball in the second half, and look at the final score.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game, but I heard all of the criticism and all that, and with Jason Kelsey retiring, maybe you knew that he had enough if he was going to retire like that. But man, the dysfunction that we've wondered about and heard rumblings about it showed, Dallas Goedert and Jalen Hurts on the bench. It felt like Goddard went over and said, did you give up? Are you giving up on us? And then he walked away basically from Jalen Hurts. That's what that conversation felt like. But man, the defense, like Bradbury, he's got to go. They got to cut him despite how much he makes. He was getting beat pretty much all year long. He was really bad in that defense. And then I think the only bright spot was Jalen front, the rookie. They did lose a lot of coordinators, and hiring Matt Patricia, they should have never did that. I know they were trying to find a spark on defense, but I would never hire someone from that Belichick tree, and he was just awful for him. I think he was just another. Once he got in there, it made things worse for the defense, and it really was. I mean, you had Darius Slay, you had all these, all players. They did lose one man the week before, but I didn't think he was going to make that much of a difference. I think they were just that bad. I mean, offensively, Devontae did get his, but A.J. Brown, you have to look at him and say, do you want to be here or not? Remember, he unfollowed everything Eagles, put down everything Eagles on social media. I wonder if he's going to ask for a trade. He was, hurt from week 18. This whole thing can just Man, I thought things in so quick in sports now with free agency and contracts and all that, but I didn't think the Eagles would be the ones just disintegrating so fast. But it just feels like that. They're just one year removed from the Super Bowl appearance, and just felt like okay, they have Sirianni, they have a style, they have a toughness to them, but damn it, it's all gone. I saw even this video of what's his name? No, a fan throwing popcorn on him on the road at the. You hear me now?
Yeah, I know you.
Okay, yeah. Now I feel with the Eagle fans, they're pissed off, and a lot of them, flew down to go see that game, and it's just amazing how 1 year removed from the Super Bowl, how they can just disintegrate like they are. It's amazing to see. For the Bucks, I mean, Mike Evans didn't do so much, but everybody else got there. So that was good to see. Baker Mayfield, remember, he was lost in Carolina and brought over, just to finish last season off. I didn't know how this year was going to be, but he's been spotty up and down like the team. The defense did well. They even stopped the tush push, which
Yeah.
I found that to be amazing. Villa got in there, and then the linebacker number 52 came over to just grab Jalen Hurts almost by the neck and throw him back. That was awesome to see. I bet Jalen Hurts he's really banged up too. Maybe he's wounded, and he's not as aggressive as he should be. I know Todd mentioned he's not making the certain plays that he would in the past. It's not as accurate. And the thing I saw from a expert, he was not throwing the ball down the middle of the field like he used to, and that's where you have Goddard. That's where you have the other tight end, and then that's where you have your receivers. That's where they make their money and make plays. And we didn't really see that after a while this season. And this was a team that went 10-1 and then just fell. It's just amazing how things change just like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. But you know what else? What else I noticed about the Philadelphia Eagles? The RPO isn't there no more. Like Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts, remember last year the RPO was what the bread and butter for the Philadelphia. Once teams started figuring that out, it was over for Jalen Hurts, man. If he has a bad year next year, he's gonna be looking like I hate saying it in these terms because I hope it doesn't sound racial, but he's gonna be the Black Daniel Jones, bro. He might be the Black Daniel Jones.
Could be. Could be.
But let's move on to you guys ready for the predictions?
Let's do it.
All right. Todd, do you want to announce the games?
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
such a splendid job.
Appreciate it. All right, so first game up on ESPN ABC at 1:30 on Saturday will be the 10-7 Texans, 4-4 on the road, go to Baltimore to take on the number 1 seed in the AFC, 13-4, 6-3 at home. Tickets going as low as $121, and the weather is 28 degrees and partly cloudy. Baltimore is 7.5-point favorite.
James, who do you got?
okay, so these two met, I believe, early in the season, and the Texans weren't themselves. They didn't find themselves yet. I believe it was week one, I
It
want to
was it
say,
was
in
week 1.
Baltimore.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a blowout. I mean, CJ did get his after a while in that game, but excuse me, he looked really lost. Now he's found. So it's funny how that goes. Baltimore, I think like many of us has mentioned or said, when they take their time off, like last year or the years before, when they don't play their starters in week 18, when they have a seed or a division wrapped up, they come in off. You might see that in this game, but I think eventually that Raven defense will get to Stroud. They will try to find a bad game that Stroud had and try to work it into their a scheme there on defense. I can imagine the MVP Lamar Jackson will do his thing and they'll run well, they'll pass well. I feel like Odell Beckham Jr. will show out because he's got another chance at another Super Bowl, and it may be his second best chance, I guess, in his career. Um, I feel like the Ravens are going to win this. I hope Houston keeps themselves in the game, but it feels like they aren't. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping for an upset, but I'm not willing to go. I'm not willing to go there. I feel like Houston, of course, an indoor team. You said it was what 26 degrees in Baltimore. I'm going to go Baltimore by 7.
You're gonna go Baltimore, James.
Yeah,
All right. Well, in that case, man, look, man, I'm feeling CJ Stroud a little too much. And going into Baltimore, I mean, like you just covered and tied what do you want to call it? Not agreed, but he basically I don't know. I don't even know where I'm taking it. But both of you guys said that Baltimore and Houston played week one in Baltimore and CJ Stroud wasn't himself. And this was before the wide receivers were developed. And Devin Singletary wasn't running the ball as good as he was. But man, to get right to it, bro, I'm gonna go with and I can't wait to watch this game because CJ Stroud, the release that he has and that arch on that ball, bro. Like I've never seen a quarterback throw such a pretty ball in the NFL as nice as his throws are, bro. Like I'm just obsessed with that dude's mechanics. That dude is an awesome quarterback. I wish Minnesota had him, but good thing he's in Houston because Houston steaming right now. In Baltimore, like you said, they had that week off, and that is the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC. So I'm going with the Houston Texans.
You know what? I have to agree. I want to say the Ravens, but for the exact reasons why James, calling out, like he could see it being close because of time off. You too, as far as like CJ Stroud, this is a different team. I think you saw, one thing that just got me was D'Amico Ryans in that Tennessee game where they had the backup quarterback in there. I think it was Case Keenum, and he threw a pick six, and D'Amico Ryans was laughing, and he comes over, and the game's not over. It's late in the third, almost the fourth quarter, and he comes over to Keenum. He goes, man, he goes, you got this. He goes, you're gonna win the game for us. Don't worry about it. You fuck up, you're good. And it's like he has that confidence built in a backup quarterback. Imagine what he has for Stroud, who's been playing just his ass off. So I do think the Ravens maybe channel their inner Eagles and overlook the Houston Texans, because I saw an interview with they had, I guess, their walkthrough today or something, and Lamar Jackson was asked about the game, and of course you're going to say something positive. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't have said anything positive, but they said, how confident are you in your abilities against Houston? And he said, oh, very confident. I think the offense is going to be rolling, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, man, that's good and all, but I would take that from a Tom Brady, from a Patrick Mahomes, from guys who've actually done it. And like Carlos said, he's had multiple playoff runs and multiple playoff failures. So I got to see it to believe it. I think the Texans are a hungry enough team with nothing to lose that could give Baltimore some real trouble. So long story short, give me the Texans by 2. So I don't know.
Yeah. What's next on the plate, Todd?
Well, that'll move us to a big rivalry, an NFC rivalry that's been around for an awful long time. The Green Bay Packers. No one thought they were going to be here. It should have been Dallas, according to all the Dallas fans. The Packers come in as a 7th seed, 9-8, 4-5 on the road. Go to the mighty dominant Santa Clara 49ers, who are 12-5, 5-3 at home. 62 degrees and partly cloudy. Lowest ticket is $221. Niners are 8.5-point favorites, and the over-under's a very high 50.5.
I feel like love stops here. Unfortunately, I really want them to win though. I hate San Francisco, of course. It'd be a great story. I mean, if you have Detroit and Green Bay in the championship. That'd be
So do we got a spoiler?
But I think San Francisco eventually they're going to win this game. I think they just have too much. Green Bay, I think it was just an extra topping on a Sunday for them to have a playoff game and actually win it. Now reality is going to kick them in the butt, unfortunately. I think San Francisco easily wins this, at least by 10. I mean, hopefully Love keeps them in the game and Jones runs well, but I think that secondary for San Francisco shows up very well. Up front, they do well as well. Yeah, I'm going San Francisco.
You're gonna go with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Man, call me wild card Carlos, bro. I think I want to pick the Green Bay Packers in this one. I feel like I haven't made my official pick. I'm still going back and forth with it, but I'm kind of feeling the Green Bay Packers in this one, mainly because I think the Packers, their defense has been coming alive really, really strong the last 4 or 5 weeks or since the midway point. Jordan Love has been playing lights out. I think he's like 18-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Brock Purdy, bro, if the Packers defense, which has proven within the last few games, they can get to the quarterback. They've been playing really, really good. They've been playing phenomenal, actually. And that kid, Brock Purdy, bro, like Brock Purdy kind of scares me in this matchup. It's so easy. I know exactly why the 49ers are favored and all that, but it's so easy to see how this game can get turned upside down. And it starts with Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy throws 1 or 2 interceptions, Green Bay will take care of the ball with Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones is looking really, really good, man. You don't score 3 touchdowns in the playoffs by accident. That's no mistake. But the 49ers defense, I think, holds strong, bro. Like I'm really feeling the Green Bay Packers in this matchup, but I've got to be smart with my pick. I'm gonna go with the 49ers, but it will not shock me if the Green Bay Packers beat the 49ers. This will be one of the biggest upsets ever because no 7 seed has ever beaten a 1 seed, let alone win one playoff game. Circle me in for the 49ers, but man, it's going to be a close game.
I want to pick the Packers too because I hate the 49ers, but I'm not going to do it. I don't think lightning strikes twice. But if it were to some reason, you have two factors in this game. At least Dallas was playing from the week before against Washington woke, and they had to play their starters to win that division. The Niners have been sitting for a while, and I'm going to say no matter what happens in this game, it's going to take them a while to take control of this game. I think if they do take control of the game, it'll be the third quarter. However, if the Niners get punched in the face, I still think they can recover from it, unlike Dallas, because of that defense and because the offense will eventually get rolling. But if Green Bay does punch them in the face and they're able to hang 10, Carlos is right. This could be a lot closer than we expect, but I can easily see it going James's way too. So I am going to go with the Niners, but hopeful the Packers can make this a game and maybe more. So that will move us on to the next game, which is these two teams played earlier in the year where the Buccaneers wore those awesome, amazing throwback jerseys. I freaking love those. But they played like crap at home. And the Buccaneers have been having a problem with 1 week on, 1 week off Mayfield. But he's shown recently that he can do it back-to-back weeks. And I think that's the biggest difference with the Buccaneers of late. They are 9-8, 5-4 on the road, but they have to go to Detroit, which is a crazy place to play now, which no one ever said that before. Lions are 12-5, 6-2 at home, 6.5-point favorites. The over/under's at 48.5. And if you have a family of 4 and you're trying to take your Lions fans to this game, just know that the lowest ticket is $519. Nosebleed. So a family of 4 will cost you over $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, that I think last week was 340 something against LA, and now Baker Mayfield, if he gets flushed out, he's going to have some trouble. So it feels like that's going to be the case. Basically, Detroit, if they could run outside the seams there, they'll be fine. But if they run up the middle, they won't have that success. It feels like, even though Detroit has a good offensive line, the defensive line of Tampa Bay will shut that down, it feels like. So if they can get going through the air, both teams really good. I think it's going to be another close one with Detroit, but I think they pull it out. I'm going to go Detroit by.
Okay, so he's going with Detroit.
Tampa Bay eventually is going to have some mistakes that'll kill him. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay.
You got Tampa Bay. I got you circled down for. You're gonna go with Tampa Bay?
No, I'm sorry, Detroit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh damn, because I got you circled down for Detroit. Look, man, for this one right here, Detroit, especially with how cold it is, And a lot of Buccaneer fans probably don't even count the Buccaneers. They're not really looking at the Buccaneers' way for victory. I think a lot of people, the whole entire country, basically is going to be looking at circling the Detroit Lions and win this.
You still there?
Biased pick, and this is the playoffs. I think that Detroit has too much on the table on the offense and deep on the offensive side with the way they can wing it and the way they can run the ball. They got two running backs that can get the job done. Then they got all those receivers. Jared Goff has been to the Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield is playing the best I've ever seen him play consistently, like Todd said, back to back weeks or whatever. And yeah, man, I think that the season ends for Tampa.
The first time in our lifetimes we're going to be able to say the Detroit Lions are in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I think they are going to finally make it there with all the magical things. The Cinderella slipper is still going to be on their feet after this game. You know, I like Baker Mayfield to make a couple throws, but I also like them to make a couple mistakes and to stall a little bit. And I think Detroit's going to wind up, taking this one to the house, man. Yeah, I just see them in the NFC Championship, man.
Clean sweep. We're all going with the Detroit Lions. I would have picked the Buccaneers had they had an actual running back, actual running game. But right now, the way it looks is Tampa Bay versus the LA Rams. The Rams are a better team than the Buccaneers, and the Lions were able to withstand that fight against the Rams. So that's where my deciding point also went to.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to just watch that Buccaneers pass rush, and I think they can. I think the Lions can withstand it, and if the Buccaneers stall, I'm telling you, the Lions will even if they're not scoring and they're not blowing them out, they'll eventually wear them down. So that'll move us now to Buffalo, where it's going to be 20 degrees and cloudy with a chance of snow flurries, just a tiny chance. But the Chiefs are 11-6. The world champions come into the Buffalo to play the Bills, who are 7-2 at home, 11-6 overall. Tickets going as low as $172. The spread is the lowest out of any game. It's only 3. Buffalo's favored by 3. 45.5 is the high over under. So, do the Bills get it done finally against the Chiefs, or do the Chiefs continue their playoff dominance against the Bills?
I think it depends on the running game of Kansas City. I really do. If Pacheco has a great day, I think the Chiefs win. But I think it all just depends on that, because if Mahomes isn't throwing as well, if they don't get the same production out of Rice and Kelsey, it feels like Buffalo can take this. And then for Kansas City's defense, they have to do well again, but against a good offensive, Josh Allen and the Bills. We know these two always playing against each other, but at Arrowhead, really never, or maybe just once at Buffalo. And I believe it was in 2020 and the Chiefs won that game. But the rest of the time, it was always at Arrowhead, and Buffalo would always win in the regular season and lose in the postseason. So maybe this is the time that Buffalo is able to dethrone Kansas City because it's in Buffalo. That's all I think of. Man, James Cook is going to have to be very special. That's asking a lot from a young player. But I think they get it done. I think the defense gets after him very well. They have a good defensive line as well as a great offensive line. I'm so torn about this because it's like what I said earlier. You're going against championship pedigree, but Buffalo really needs this, and they've been the hottest. Kansas City, trying to find themselves, and they kind of have, but maybe time has run out on this Chiefs team.
All right, sounds good, man. Sounds good. You're gonna go with Buffalo. I can see why the Buffalo Bills could win this game. I can see it. They're at home. Crowd is gonna be going crazy. Kansas City doesn't look like their normal selves. They've been somewhat squeaking by with some of these wins. And man, I'm gonna just get right down to it, man. Buffalo is Buffalo, bro. That's one of the most cursed franchises in NFL history. They've had their opportunities for the past 4 years. This is their fourth straight year of winning the division. But a curse exists for the Buffalo Bills. That franchise went four straight Super Bowls and they lost all four. Right now, this is I'm gonna go with Kansas City in this one because Kansas City did something against Miami that not a lot of teams could do. They held that whole entire offense stepping into his zone, and he's going to be an elite receiver within the next 2 to 3 years. Travis Kelce hasn't really done much, and the Chiefs are still like I just said, squeaking by with these wins, and they still got that Walrus head coach Andy Reid with the frozen boogers over there on his mustache. Um, and yeah, man, this is a perfect game for Kansas City to go.
I I really don't like how that Chiefs Bills game ended. Finally, Josh Allen got that victory over the Chiefs, and you had Patrick Mahomes having a complete meltdown and a tantrum at the end of the game. Instead of being respectful and shaking Josh Allen's hand, he was bitching about a play that Josh Allen already forgot. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you got to keep with your team. Not saying that plays a factor, but what does play a factor is that you have two things that are going to hurt the Bills if they let it, and that is penalties and turnovers. If they limit those two, there's no reason why they can't beat the Chiefs. And I think they can be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. But damn it, if Josh Allen starts throwing wild like Brett Favre and throwing a couple interceptions he shouldn't, and all of a sudden there's these pass interferences that are extending Chiefs drives, man, it's going to be a long day in Buffalo. And like Carlos said, cursed franchise will add another curse to their legacy. But give me the Bills.
That was a nice setup right there. I like that.
I like the Bills.
All right, so I didn't go over last week's pick, so basically that wraps up our predictions right there. But last week's wild card, Todd and James went with Cleveland. I went with Houston. In the Kansas City versus Miami game, you both got it right with the Kansas City Chiefs. I went with Miami. Then we all went with Buffalo over Pittsburgh. We all went with Dallas over Green Bay. I was the only one that picked the Rams to beat the Lions. You guys both went with the Lions, and we all picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So those were the picks and results from last week, and now we move on to the divisional round where the Buffalo Bills. I'm just reading the list that I got right here. The Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I went with the Chiefs. You guys went with the Bills. The Ravens versus the Texans. Me and Todd picked the Texans. James went with the Ravens. We all picked the Lions to beat the Buccaneers, and we all picked the 49ers to beat the Packers. One thing I wanted to point out before we move on or before we end the stream is Detroit versus Tampa Bay. This is a funny. This is weird the way it's setting up for Detroit because last week they played against Matthew Stafford. We know the history and all that between those two quarterbacks and those two franchises and all that, right? Now this one's lining up differently, and I don't know if I've heard it in the media or anywhere else, but I'm thinking this is the first thing that came to my mind when I seen that these two teams are going to line up. Tampa Bay used to be in the same division as the Detroit Lions, and Tampa Bay has more division titles than the Detroit Lions in the NFC North. So it's kind of eerie the way it's lining up for Detroit, isn't it? First they beat Matthew Stafford in their first playoff win in how long? How many years? And now they're going to go after the team that has probably like the second most NFC North titles or NFC Central titles in its existence. It's just wild the way it's setting up for that for the Lions.
That is true. It's definitely going to have some old school flavor to it. That's for sure.
They should, hey, for this game right here, I don't know if it's happened in the playoffs, but they should have the retro jersey, like the NFC Central jersey, the creamsicle orange creamsicle jerseys versus the Barry Sanders Lions jerseys. That would be something to watch right there, man.
Yeah, it would be those all white Buccaneers. That is still, dude, I don't know if anyone's watching that's a Buccaneers fan, but I've looked high and low, and it is very, very hard to find a old school Tampa Bay Buccaneers You can find the creamsicle ones, but you can't find the road white ones with the orange lettering. That is a hard ass jersey to find.
You got anything, James?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit wears that gray on gray with the blue helmet. I'd
Uh,
be horrified by it. But yeah, I'm just man, I'm just hoping for a lot of upsets, basically. Detroit winning, of course, but Green Bay and Houston and Buffalo. I think the world would maybe end if we get a Houston and Detroit Super Bowl. I think that'd be amazing. I don't know how many people would watch or care, but I would. I mean, that'd be awesome. Houston is trying to find their identity back from, the Watt days, and then Detroit's found theirs after, a 5-year plan that is early in the third season of Dan Campbell. So I'm hoping for Houston, Detroit. That'd be awesome.
That would be nice.
yeah, it would be. I think one thing about the NFL is it doesn't matter who's in the Super Bowl. You'll always get people to watch. That's just the one thing
Yeah.
about it.
Very true, man. Very true.
So I think that's it for our picks, and we're gonna have only 4 games to pick next week's again too. Actually 2. We're gonna be down to the final 4 as the season winds down. So yeah, man, it's been a fun year. Any final thoughts?
Now, man, let's just hope that there's no blowouts. Honestly, no
Yeah.
blowouts. Please, no blowouts, because we've seen blowouts even in the playoffs. Those are snoozers. Nobody wants to play blowouts. Everybody loves close playoff games, man. These are we're winding down to the Super Bowl. That means the football season is almost, I think, of the past until August, September. So please, no blowouts. We need really good games going into the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
That's all I've got.
All right. So for Todd Fox,
James.
Carlos.
peace. I was waiting for Toodles.